So obviously, we've discussed in this interview, but a lot of outside noise, a lot of pressure, a lot of talk about is Napier on the
Is
hot.
there pressure though? I don't know if there's pressure. Like I don't at media days. It was such a weird phenomenon. The day that Florida went, every day had four members. Florida was probably the third or fourth talked about team of those four that day. Like people just dismissed the Gators, and to some degree, to me too. I find myself talking about Georgia, how difficult their schedule is. They got to play Alabama and Tuscaloosa. They got to play Ole Miss. They got to play Texas. They got to play Tennessee. Oh, by the way, they play Florida in the cocktail party. Like that used to be the game we talked about the most. But like, do we honestly believe that Florida's one of the top two or three challengers for Georgia on their schedule this year? Probably not. So,
that the pressure, right? The fact that isn't the standard. We're not to the place that Gator fans expect.
that is true, but I mean, it's been a while since even those. I was thinking about our appearances back under McElwain when we went to the SEC title game. That was a little bit of fool's gold, right? The East was so far down. Yeah, I mean, we've been far off for a long time, and the pressure, obviously, right now, the pressure, whatever pressure there is on Napier. I don't buy that he's on the hot seat. Short of having like a disastrous season and just an embarrassment in terms of execution and sidelines and everything else, he's going to be back another year. I mean, so I think Florida fans need to support Coach Napier, good or bad. I think they need to support this team and understand that it is still a work in progress. But Florida's made some strides when it comes to adding talent, when it comes to having players that we can all be proud of, and a program that I think is not too far off from competing to get to Atlanta again one of these days soon.
So, you said you feel like Napier is confident, not braggadocious, but confident, and that this team is got a lot of continuity. Would you say that you think the confidence trickles down to the players, though? They think they're going to put on a show?
I do. I really do believe that they're kind of lying in the cut a little bit. Nobody's talking about them. Everybody's talking about 4.5, 5 wins.
Mm-hmm.
They not like, in my opinion, I think, and I think you'd agree with me, Ali, winning 7 games is great this year. I think it's an improvement, obviously, from the 5 wins last year with the challenging nature of the schedule. It certainly would say something about where Florida is in the hierarchy of the SEC. I think these guys believe that they can go win 10 games or more. I think these guys believe that they can compete to get to Atlanta and play in the college football playoff. So none of them have said that to me.
Sure.
But I get that feeling being around some of these guys. And I'll say this, it was cool for me. I don't know how Eric feels, but like once you get done playing and the guys that you played with, you start to feel a little disconnected. I was on the sideline yesterday and probably 9-10 different active players on the roster came by, dapped me up, said hello. I know these guys more than I've known any of the players in the past.
Yeah.
Coach Napier said to me, he's like, you need to come around more, man. We need you out here. We need the rest of your teammates out here. Bring more guys. We need to teach these guys what it means to be part of this Florida football family. And so that really, resonated with me because I think sometimes you feel like you're not a part of it, but these guys have gone out of the way to make me feel welcome. And I think a lot of the former players would really feel that same warmth that maybe hadn't been there in recent years if they got a chance to get out there too.
I feel like that is especially impressive given this NIL era that we're in, because I do feel like a lot of former players almost feel like young guys that play college football these days, not just at Florida, but anywhere, are kind of mercenaries, right? That chase the bag to go wherever it is that they are. So it's maybe kind of rare, right? That's the kind of attitude that is on those sidelines.
So one of the things that I thought that the staff did that was really cool, I want to say it was before last year, maybe it was the year before, but got with a bunch of us former players, asked us to talk about Tennessee and what that game means, asked us to talk about Florida State, what that means, what Georgia means. And they put this video together to teach the players about the history of Florida's rivalries. And
there that day, huh?
What's that?
ETN wasn't there that day.
Yeah, he must have skipped that one. But but Coach Napier said that's what we do. We showed it to the team. Everybody knows what's going on. Every freshman group that comes in sees that video now. And so I think you're right about it. Like it's kind of refreshing to me, in all honesty. And I'm kind of the exception to the rule in that I, like you, grew up a Gator fan, and this program meant the world to me, and I wanted anything to just to be out there. I do think in college football there's an entitlement to some degree, like what can this school do for me? But I get the feeling that Coach Napier's recruited guys that understand what it means to be a part of this program now and really are buying into the legacy and what can happen if you're able to get this program back to where it used to be. And I think they take that charge very seriously.
Well, and I think the best programs, right, are filled with a few superstars, but a roster full of program guys, right?
Yeah.
Those are the Chris Dorings. Those are the Eric Wilbers, the people who 20 years later are bringing their children back. And that's what sustains the program in the long run, right? And so it is so cool to hear that that's what's being built, because I do think it's kind of rare, with the transfer portal and NIL. It's made everybody a little bit entitled. I think, what are you going to do for me? How thankful are you going to be that I've graced you with my
Yeah.
presence?
Yeah. No, I think it definitely has set up some kids for failure.
Yeah.
And but I really feel good about the program right now.
Before we go on with Chris, I want to thank Meldon Law for their support. Not only do they support my channel, but they also support UF Athletics. If you're in Gainesville, Ocala, Fort Lauderdale, or Lake City, and you're either in a car, truck, or motorcycle accident, your consultations with Meldon Law are absolutely free. They've been serving Florida since 1971 and are a proud partner and supporter of all Florida Gator athletics. We spoke earlier about how Grahm Mertz has looked in practice. And I think just overall this offseason, there's way more hype around him. Last season, we were talking about how was this even a good decision, to bring him to UF? And I think that everybody's pretty excited about him right now. But what's his ceiling?
It's funny. There's way more hype, but I think that hype is only within the Florida program. We were talking about Heisman odds on our show this morning. A.J. Swan, the former Vanderbilt quarterback that's now transferred to LSU as the backup to Garrett Nussmeier,
Yeah.
is 185 to 1 to win the Heisman. Grahm Mertz is only 150 to 1. Like, we're talking about a guy that's not even a starter at his school being close to where Grahm Mertz is. I still think there's a lot of oversight and disrespect as it relates to what Grahm Mertz has done for Florida to this point and what he can do this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the season as one of the top, 4 or 5 quarterbacks in this league. I thought at the end of the year last year, I thought he was one of the top 5 or 6 probably in this league. So I do think people need to pay him his due, and he's going to go out there and show the guys around this country what he's capable of doing this year.
A lot has been made about Napier's play calling, and we've talked about this in previous interviews as well. But do you think it's as big a deal as it's been made out to be?
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting time in college football right now. You look at Eli Drinkwitz passing the play calling duties over to Kirby Moore last year. Ended up working out really well for Missouri. Clark Lee taking the defensive play calling back at Vanderbilt. So there are coaches. Hugh Freeze is one that I think is trying to reclaim a little bit more of the play calling after, kind of passing that to Philip Montgomery last year. They've let Montgomery go this year. And so to me, especially if my job's on the line, which I'm not saying it is, but when you at the end of the day, you gotta produce.
Yeah.
And if things are not going well, I'm gonna bet on myself. And
Yeah.
if I've cut my teeth and got to this place because I've been able to call defensive plays or call offensive plays, I'm gonna go down swinging. I'm gonna go down that way. So I think they've added some good pieces around Coach Napier. But he's confident in his ability to do both, act as the CEO and as the play caller. And, I'm optimistic it works out this year.
Okay, we're going to end with this. What is UF's record against the in-state teams? And then what is their overall record going to be?
Ooh.
On August 4th.
On August 4th here. I would say, I have no doubt that Florida's going to go 3-0 in the state. So let me chalk those up right there. And then, I'm going to throw one back at you after I answer this. I think they win 7 games, maybe 8. So, the question I have for you is Florida has 7 home games this year. What's their home record at the end of the year?
Ooh, good question.
Some difficult home games too.
They do. They have some really difficult questions. Our home games. I'm going to go 5-2. I think. What do you?
That's kind of what I went with too. I went 5-2. So let's match that up. You know, two of those home games would include Florida teams, Miami and UCF.
Mhm.
So you win those games. You win Sanford. Um, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see Florida beat LSU this year down here. So I think winning 7 or 8 is very feasible this year, in my opinion.
I mean, I think Texas A&M, right? You got to get you probably get Texas A&M early. They've got a lot of changes going on there. So, I mean, but if that happens, then are you starting 3-0? I mean, that's
Yeah,
a decent start to that 7 games.
yeah. Florida's got to make their hay early in the season. It gets much more challenging in the second half, as we all
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I mean, let's think about, you know, Florida has to get back to doing what they've always done. That's winning your home games,
Yep.
winning against Kentucky. I mean, what did Florida lost the last 3 against Kentucky? I think so. You know, there are certain milestones that I think Florida needs to kind of check the boxes of this year, which would make me feel better about getting back on path, back to getting to where we all expect Florida to be.
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to be fun to watch. I appreciate you joining me as always. We'll try and snag you whenever you have a free minute during the season, but I know that's when you're extra super busy. But we appreciate you being willing to hang out
Yeah.
with us.
No, it's always good to be on with you, Ali. Thanks for having me.